about your rights today? As American citizens, we're all guaranteed certain rights and freedoms by our Constitution. However, this is not the case for everyone. And how would you feel if instead of giving you freedom, your government attempted to force upon you a culture that was not your own? This is the case for many Tibetans currently living in China right now. As the College of Worcester promotes us as global citizens of this world, it is important to recognize the relevance of global issues to our own lives. So, when I went to a lecture a few weeks ago and heard about Tibetans lighting themselves on fire, naturally I was concerned. I'm an East Asian Studies major, and thus I'm interested in what's happening in that part of the world. So, these self-immolations, or people setting themselves on fire that are occurring, are happening in the Tibetan areas of China right now. In addition to being an East Asian Studies major, I'm also studying Buddhism, the religion of the majority of these Tibetans. These self-immolations are a serious and grave problem, but one which hopefully has a few solutions. Today, I'm going to inform you about these self-immolations and the surrounding violence, the reasons why these self-immolations are happening, and a few possible solutions to end this violence. So let's start with the problem: the increasing number of self-immolations that are occurring in China right now, and the Chinese responses of violence to these self-immolations. According to Jamil Anderlini's February 16 Financial Times report, within the past 2 weeks alone, 7 Tibetans have lit themselves on fire, and 2 Tibetans have been shot and killed by Chinese government forces. This grave problem has been on the rise since about this time last year. According to a Wall Street Journal article from February 15, within the last year, 20 Tibetan monks, nuns, and lay people have set themselves on fire. 13 of these people have died from their injuries. There has been an increase of self-immolations since last year, and especially within the past 2 months. So now that you guys know what's going on in China right now, let's talk about why this might be happening. A lot of people blame Chinese policies towards Tibet for these self-immolations. According to a New York Times article on Tibet from January 23, 2012, the Dalai Lama, or the spiritual leader of Tibetans, claims that China is stifling Tibetan culture and life. A perfect example of this is that in the majority of Tibetan homes, pictures of the Dalai Lama are forbidden from having, people are forbidden from having pictures of the Dalai Lama within their own homes. The threat surrounding this is imprisonment. Other people demand a return of the Dalai Lama to Tibet as their rightful leader. The same New York Times article on Tibet informs us that in 1959, the Dalai Lama left Tibet and fled to India after a failed attempt of an uprising against the Chinese government. The Dalai Lama continues to live in India today, where he's the spiritual leader of Tibetans. Finally, other people blame the massive immigration of Han, or ethnically Chinese people, into Tibetan areas for these Tibetan-Chinese issues. According to a Time article by Hannah Beach from November 14, 2011, there is a Chinese attempt right now to forcefully make these Tibetan areas more Chinese. And the same article quoted many Tibetans as saying that a lot of the best jobs in the areas go straight to the Han people. So now we know what's happening and why it might be happening. What are some possible solutions to help end this violence? The first solution, and the one that is endorsed by the Dalai Lama, is the path of the middle way. This consists of autonomy from Tibet. This autonomy means that Tibet would remain as a part of China, but would have its own government. The second option, which Beach also talks about in her Time article, consists of complete independence from China. So, although the Dalai Lama endorses the middle way, many other younger and more radical Tibetans say that complete independence is the only possible answer. And honestly and realistically, it seems like this might be the only option, as Tibetan attempts at independence and freedom have been constantly denied by China in the past. So now you're up to date on what's happening in Tibetan areas of China. we've looked at the serious problem of self-immolations and why it might be caused, like mass immigration of Han people, the dire demand of Tibetans for the return of the Dalai Lama, and of course, Chinese efforts to create more Chinese-related Tibetan areas. It's important as global citizens that we recognize what's going on in the world. As American citizens, we're guaranteed certain rights and freedoms. But as we look at this Tibetan issue, we realize that our rights and freedoms are not guaranteed to citizens across the world. So now, after learning about these, have you thought about your rights?